Okay, so I need to tell you something, and honestly this might completely change how you see the zodiac, because there's one sign that everyone secretly envies, and if you've been paying attention to the people who seem to effortlessly get what they want in life, there's a pattern you can't ignore. I'm talking about Aries, and before you roll your eyes, thinking this is just another astrology video praising fire signs, stay with me, because what I'm about to share goes way deeper than surface level personality traits. There's a reason why when you look at the most successful entrepreneurs, the boldest artists, the people who seem to bend reality to their will, a disproportionate number of them are Aries, or have significant Aries placements in their chart. And here's what really gets my attention. It's not just about confidence or aggression like most people think. There's something fundamentally different about how Aries operates in the world, something that gives them what I can only describe as an unfair cosmic advantage. And if you've ever felt frustrated watching an Aries person walk into a room and immediately become the center of attention or land an opportunity you've been working toward for months, there's a specific astrological reason why that keeps happening. I'll break down exactly what that reason is later in this video, but first you need to understand something crucial about how the zodiac actually works, because most people completely misunderstand what makes Aries special. They think it's about being loud or impulsive or reckless, but that's not it at all. What Aries has is something far more valuable, and once you see it you can't unsee it. The thing is, we're living in a moment right now where Aries energy is more relevant than ever before. With all the massive shifts happening in the collective, with Saturn moving through Aries starting in 2025 with the nodes of fate activating the Aries-Libra axis, the universe is literally demanding that we embody more Aries qualities, whether we're naturally inclined to or not. And the people who already have this energy built into their cosmic DNA, they're about to have an even bigger advantage than they already do. So if you've been wondering why that Aries friend of yours always seems to land on their feet, or why Aries people can take risks that would terrify anyone else and somehow they can walk away from situations that no longer serve them without looking back, keep watching, because I'm going to show you exactly what's happening beneath the surface. Let me start with something that might surprise you. When astrologers talk about Aries being the first sign of the zodiac, that's not just a random ordering. It's not like someone decided to start the wheel at Aries for no reason. There's a profound cosmic logic to why Aries sits at 0 degrees, the absolute beginning point of the entire zodiacal cycle. Aries represents pure initiation. It's the spark that starts everything. It's the moment of birth, the first breath, the explosion of life force that says I exist and I'm here to make an impact. And that positioning at the very start of the zodiac gives Aries something that no other sign has, which is the energy of absolute newness. Think about what it means to be first. When you're first, you don't have the baggage of what came before. You don't have the accumulated karma, the learned helplessness, the fear that comes from watching others fail. Aries energy is pre-trauma. It's before the world told you what's possible and what's not. It's before society conditioned you to play small or wait your turn or consider everyone else's feelings before your own. And this is where people misunderstand Aries completely. They think Aries is selfish, but that's not what's happening. Aries isn't selfish, they're pre-social. They operate from a place that exists before the concept of should or rules were written, before anyone told them they needed permission to want what they want. Does that make sense? It's like Aries has access to this pure, unfiltered life force that the rest of us have been trained to suppress. And when you're operating from that place of pure desire, pure will, pure I want this, and I'm going after it, the universe responds differently to you. I've been studying this for years, and here's what I've noticed. Aries people don't manifest through visualization or affirmations or carefully crafted vision boards. They manifest through action. They decide they want something and they immediately start moving toward it. And that immediate action, that refusal to sit in contemplation or planning or waiting for the perfect moment, that's their secret weapon. Because here's what most people don't understand about manifestation. The universe doesn't respond to your thoughts. It responds to your movement. It responds to the energetic signature of someone who's already decided and is already acting as if the thing they want is inevitable. And Aries has that energy naturally built in. Let me give you an example. I know an Aries woman who decided she wanted to start a business. She had no business experience, no capital, no connections in the industry she wanted to enter. And within 3 months she had a fully functioning company with paying clients. When I asked her how she did it, she looked at me like I'd asked a stupid question and said I just started doing it. That's Aries. They don't wait for permission. They don't wait for the perfect plan. They don't wait until they feel ready. They just start and they figure it out as they go. And somehow it works. Somehow the universe meets them halfway. Somehow opportunities appear that weren't there before. And this drives other signs absolutely crazy, especially the earth signs who want to plan everything, or the water signs who need to feel emotionally ready, or the air signs who need to understand all the variables before they move. They watch Aries people succeed through what looks like recklessness, and they can't comprehend how it's possible. But here's the thing. It's not recklessness. It's trust. Aries has an almost supernatural level of trust in their own ability to handle whatever comes. They don't need to see the whole staircase before they take the first step, because they know they'll figure out the second step when they get there. And that trust, that bone deep certainty that they can handle whatever happens, that's what creates their reality. Now let's talk about something that makes Aries even more enviable, and this is where it gets really interesting. Aries is ruled by Mars, the planet of action, of desire and war. And Mars gives Aries this incredible gift, which is the ability to access anger as fuel. Most people are terrified of anger. We've been socialized to suppress it, to be nice, to keep the peace, to not make waves. But Aries understands something that the rest of us have forgotten, which is that anger is pure life force. Anger is the part of you that says this is not acceptable and I'm going to change it. Anger is the energy that topples empires, starts revolutions, and creates massive transformation. And Aries people, they're not afraid of their anger. They don't suppress it or redirect it or turn it inward into depression. They use it. They channel it into action. They let it fuel their movement toward what they want. And that gives them access to a level of power that most people never tap into, because they're too busy trying to be spiritual or evolved or above such base emotions. I'm not saying Aries people are always angry. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that when something pisses them off, when something feels unjust or wrong or unacceptable, they don't sit with it. They don't process it endlessly. They act. And that action, that immediate response to discomfort, is what keeps them from getting stuck in the victim mentality that traps so many other people. Think about it. How many people do you know who complain about their job but never leave? Who talk about their dreams but never take a single step toward them? Who stay in relationships that drain them because they're afraid of being alone? Aries doesn't do that. When something isn't working, they're out. They don't need 6 months of therapy to process whether they should leave. They don't need their friends to validate their decision. They just go. And yes, sometimes that means they make impulsive decisions that don't work out. Sometimes they burn bridges they wish they hadn't. Sometimes they leap before they look and land in situations that are messier than what they left. But here's what's wild. Even when Aries makes a mistake, even when they crash and burn, they recover faster than anyone else. Because Aries doesn't carry shame the way other signs do. They don't ruminate on their failures. They don't spend years beating themselves up for making the wrong choice. They just shrug and say, well, that didn't work, and move on to the next thing. And that resilience, that ability to fail forward without getting stuck in self-blame, that's another massive advantage. I've watched Aries people lose everything and rebuild in a fraction of the time it would take anyone else. I've seen them get rejected from their dream job and land something even better within weeks. I've seen them go through devastating breakups and be genuinely happy and thriving in a new relationship before their ex has even processed what happened. And it's not because they're shallow or unfeeling. It's because they have this fundamental belief that the best is always ahead of them. That's the Aries superpower right there. They're not attached to what was. They're not nostalgic for the past. They're not trying to recreate some golden era. They're oriented toward the future, toward what's possible, toward what they're going to create next. And that forward momentum, that refusal to look back, that's magnetic. That's what makes people want to follow them, want to be around them, want to catch some of that energy for themselves. Now here's where it gets even more interesting, and this is something most astrology content completely misses. Aries is a cardinal sign, which means it initiates seasons. Aries begins spring, the moment when life returns after winter, when everything starts growing again, when the world wakes up. And that seasonal timing gives Aries this incredible connection to the energy of rebirth and renewal. I understand. I'll continue from where the first round ended, writing the middle third of the script in the same conversational, psychological astrology style. I'll focus on 23 new core arguments with deep exploration, specific examples, and maintain the oral delivery tone without any markdown formatting. Think about what spring represents. It's not gradual. It's not cautious. One day winter is here and the next day buds are exploding from branches and flowers are pushing through frozen ground and birds are suddenly everywhere making noise. Spring doesn't ask permission. It doesn't wait for ideal conditions. It just happens with this unstoppable force that transforms everything in its path. That's Aries energy in human form. They don't ease into things. They don't test the waters. They dive in head first, and the sheer force of their commitment creates momentum that carries them through obstacles that would stop other people cold. And this is why Aries people seem to have luck on their side. It's not luck. It's physics. When you move with that much conviction, that much raw forward momentum, the universe has no choice but to rearrange itself around you. I want to talk about something that makes people really uncomfortable, but it's absolutely central to understanding why Aries is so enviable. Aries has no problem with conflict. In fact, they're energized by it. While other signs are exhausting themselves trying to keep everyone happy, trying to maintain harmony, trying to avoid difficult conversations, Aries walks straight into the fire. And here's what's fascinating about this. Most people think conflict is bad. We've been taught that disagreement means failure, that tension means something's wrong, that if we were really evolved we'd all just get along. But that's not how growth works. That's not how change happens. Every major transformation in history, every revolution, every breakthrough, every moment when humanity took a leap forward, it came through conflict. Aries understands this instinctively. They know that sometimes you have to break things to build something better. They know that sometimes you have the hard conversation to get to the truth. They know that sometimes you have to stand up and say, no, this isn't acceptable, even if it makes people uncomfortable. And that willingness to be the bad guy, to be the one who disrupts the false peace, to be the one who says what everyone else is thinking but too afraid to voice, that's power. I've seen this play out so many times in professional settings. There's a meeting where everyone knows the project is failing. Everyone can see the problems. But nobody wants to be the one to say it, because they don't want to seem negative or difficult or not a team player. And then the Aries person in the room just says it. They lay out exactly what's wrong, exactly what needs to change, and suddenly everyone can breathe again, because the truth is finally on the table. And yes, sometimes this makes Aries unpopular. Sometimes people call them aggressive or confrontational or too much. But you know what? Those same people come to Aries when they need someone to fight for them. When they need someone to stand up to the boss or negotiate a better deal or handle a difficult situation, they can't face themselves. Because deep down everyone knows that Aries has the courage they wish they had. This brings me to something really important about Aries that explains so much of why people envy them. Aries lives in the present moment in a way that other signs simply cannot. They're not haunted by the past. They're not anxious about the future. They're here now, fully engaged with whatever is happening right in front of them. And that presence, that ability to be completely absorbed in the current moment, gives them a massive advantage in almost every area of life. Think about how most people operate. They're having a conversation but they're thinking about what they're going to say next. They're at work but they're worried about bills. They're on a date but they're replaying past relationship failures. They're never fully here. They're always split between multiple timelines. And that fragmentation, that divided attention, it drains their power. Aries doesn't have that problem. When they're with you, they're with you. When they're working on something, they're working on it. When they're pursuing a goal, they're pursuing it. There's no hedging, no backup plan, no one foot out the door just in case. They're all in. And that total commitment, that undivided focus, it creates results that half-hearted efforts never could. I know a guy who's an Aries sun with an Aries rising, and watching him work is like watching a force of nature. When he's on a project, he doesn't check his phone. He doesn't get distracted. He doesn't take breaks to scroll social media. He just works with this intense focused energy until it's done. And he accomplishes in 3 hours what takes other people 3 days, because he's not leaking energy in 1,000 different directions. But here's where it gets really interesting. This ability to be present, this capacity for total focus, it also makes Aries incredibly charismatic. Because when someone gives you their full attention, when they look at you, you're the only person in the room, when they listen to what you're saying without planning their response, that's magnetic. That's rare. That's what makes people feel seen and valued and important. And Aries does this naturally. They're not trying to be charismatic. They're not using some technique they learned in a communication workshop. They're just genuinely interested in whatever or whoever is in front of them in that moment. And then the moment passes and they move on to the next thing with the same intensity. Which can be confusing for people who mistake that intensity for something deeper than it is. But that's a different conversation. Now let's talk about something that really sets Aries apart, and this is going to sound controversial, but I think it's true. Aries has a relationship with failure that is fundamentally different from every other sign. Most people are terrified of failure. They avoid it at all costs. They'd rather not try than risk failing. They see failure as evidence that they're not good enough, not smart enough, not worthy enough. Aries sees failure as data. They try something. It doesn't work. They note what went wrong and try something else. There's no emotional drama attached to it. There's no identity crisis. There's no 3-month period of self-doubt and questioning everything. They just move on. And this gives them an enormous advantage, because they're willing to fail more times than other people are willing to try. I read somewhere that the average successful entrepreneur fails 7 times before they succeed. But most people give up after the first or second failure because they can't handle the emotional weight of it. Aries can fail 7 times before breakfast and still have energy to try again at lunch. Because they don't internalize failure the way other signs do. They don't make it mean something about their worth or their capabilities. It's just information about what doesn't work. This is why you see so many Aries people in entrepreneurship, in startups, in high-risk, high-reward fields. They're not more talented than everyone else. They're not smarter. They're just willing to fail more. They're willing to look stupid. They're willing to be wrong. They're willing to try things that might not work. And in a world where most people are paralyzed by the fear of failure, that willingness to just go for it regardless of the outcome, that's a superpower. But there's something even deeper here that I think is the real secret to Aries' success. Aries has an almost childlike relationship with desire. They want what they want without shame, without justification, without needing it to make sense to anyone else. And in a world where we're constantly told to be realistic, to lower expectations, to settle for what's practical, that pure unfiltered desire is revolutionary. Most adults have been so thoroughly conditioned out of wanting things. We've learned to want what we're supposed to want. We've learned to desire what's acceptable. We've learned to limit our dreams to what seems achievable. But Aries never learned that lesson. Or they learned it and decided it was bullshit. They want what they want with the same intensity a 5-year-old wants ice cream. And they pursue it with the same single-minded determination. And here's what's wild. That childlike quality, that refusal to be reasonable or practical or sensible, it actually makes them more successful, not less. Because when you're not limiting yourself to what seems possible, you're open to opportunities that other people can't even see. When you're not worried about looking foolish or being disappointed, you're willing to ask for things that other people would never dare to request. When you're not playing by the rules of what's realistic, you can create realities that didn't exist before. I've seen Aries people negotiate salaries that seemed impossible. I've seen them start businesses in saturated markets and somehow make it work. I've seen them pursue romantic partners who seemed completely out of their league and end up in amazing relationships. And it's not because they're delusional. It's because they're not limited by other people's definitions of what's possible. There's this concept in psychology called learned helplessness. It's when you've been conditioned to believe that your actions don't matter, that you can't change your circumstances, that you're powerless. And most people have some degree of learned helplessness. They've tried things that didn't work and they've concluded that trying doesn't work. They've been rejected and they've concluded that they're not good enough. They failed and they've concluded that success isn't for them. Aries doesn't have learned helplessness. They have learned agency. Every time they take action and see a result, even if it's not the result they wanted, they learn that their actions matter. They learn that they have power. They learn that they can influence their reality. And that creates this upward spiral where they keep taking action, which keeps giving them evidence that action works, which makes them more likely to take action in the future. This is why Aries people seem to have this unshakable confidence. It's not that they never doubt themselves. It's that they've built up so much evidence through repeated action that they can handle whatever comes, that the doubt doesn't stop them. They feel the fear and they do it anyway. They feel the uncertainty and they move forward anyway. They feel the discomfort and they lean into it anyway. And this is where other signs really struggle. Because most people wait until they feel confident before they act. They wait until they feel ready. They wait until the fear goes away. But Aries understands something crucial, which is that confidence comes from action, not the other way around. You don't wait until you feel brave to do the brave thing. You do the brave thing and then you feel brave. Let me tell you about an Aries woman I know who completely changed careers at 45. She'd been in corporate finance for 20 years. Stable job, good salary, benefits, the whole package. But she was miserable. She wanted to be a photographer. And everyone told her she was crazy. Her family said she was throwing away her security. Her friends said she was having a midlife crisis. Financial advisors told her it was irresponsible. She did it anyway. She quit her job. She sold her house. She moved to a smaller place. She bought camera equipment. She started taking photos. And for the first year she made almost no money. She was living off savings and doing odd jobs to make ends meet. Everyone was waiting for her to admit it was a mistake and go back to finance. But she didn't. She kept shooting. She kept learning. She kept putting herself out there. And now 5 years later she's one of the most sought after photographers in her city. She's making more money than she did in finance. She's traveling the world for shoots. She's working with clients she admires. She's genuinely happy. And when people ask her how she did it, she says, "I just decided I was going to make it work and I didn't let myself consider any other option." That's Aries. They don't have a plan B, because having a plan B means you're not fully committed to plan A. They don't hedge their bets. They don't keep one foot in the old life just in case. They burn the boats. They go all in. And that total commitment, that refusal to give themselves an escape route, it creates a level of focus and determination that makes success almost inevitable. Now I want to talk about something that might be the most enviable quality of all. Aries has this incredible ability to start over, to reinvent themselves, to walk away from their entire life and build something completely new. And they do it with a lightness that other signs find incomprehensible. Most people are so attached to their identity. They've spent years building this image of who they are. They've invested so much in their career, their relationships, their reputation. And the thought of starting over, of admitting that the life they built isn't working, of becoming a beginner again, it's terrifying. So they stay stuck. They stay in situations that no longer serve them because the alternative seems worse. Aries doesn't have that attachment. They're not invested in being right about their past choices. They're not trying to prove that the time they spent was worth it. If something isn't working, they're out. And they don't waste time mourning what could have been. They're already excited about what's next. Already imagining the new life they're going to create. Already taking the first steps towards something different. This is why you see Aries people with these wild, varied life stories. They were a lawyer, then they became a yoga teacher. They lived in New York, then they moved to Bali. They were married, then they were single, then they were in a completely different kind of relationship. They don't have a linear path. They have a series of bold moves and radical reinventions. And each time they start over, they bring the lessons from before, but they don't bring the baggage. I think this is what people envy most about Aries. Not the confidence or the courage or the success, but the freedom. The freedom to change their mind. The freedom to want something different. The freedom to walk away from what's not working without guilt or shame or endless justification. The freedom to be a different person tomorrow than they were today. That's what everyone wants. That's what most people feel they can't have. But Aries has it naturally. And here's what makes this even more powerful. Aries doesn't just have the freedom to reinvent themselves. They inspire that freedom in others. When you watch an Aries person completely transform their life, it gives you permission to imagine that you could do the same. When you see them walk away from something that everyone else thought was permanent, it makes you question your own assumptions about what's possible. When you witness them start over at an age when most people have given up on change, it cracks open something in your own consciousness. This is why Aries people often become catalysts in other people's lives. They're not trying to be inspirational. They're not posting motivational quotes or giving advice. They're just living their truth so loudly and so unapologetically that it forces everyone around them to examine their own compromises. And sometimes that's uncomfortable. Sometimes people resent Aries for making them feel their own stuckness. But sometimes it's exactly what someone needs to finally make the change they've been avoiding. I want to talk about something that's rarely discussed, but I think it's crucial to understanding the Aries advantage. Aries has an incredible relationship with time. Most people experience time as this oppressive force. They feel like they're running out of time. They feel like they've wasted time. They feel like they don't have enough time. Time becomes this source of anxiety and regret and pressure. Aries experiences time completely differently. They live in what I call eternal now. They're not worried about running out of time because they're fully engaged with the time they have. They're not mourning wasted time because they don't see any experience as wasted. They're not feeling pressure about not having enough time because they trust that they'll accomplish what they're meant to accomplish when they're meant to accomplish it. This gives them this incredible sense of spaciousness. While other people are frantically trying to optimize every minute, trying to be productive, trying to make every moment count, Aries is just being, just doing, just living. And paradoxically, this relaxed relationship with time makes them more effective, not less. Because they're not operating from scarcity. They're not making decisions from fear of missing out. They're not rushing through experiences to get to the next thing. I've noticed this especially with Aries people in creative fields. They don't have the tortured artist syndrome. They don't agonize over their work. They don't spend years perfecting something before they share it. They create. They put it out there. They move on to the next thing. And this prolific output, this willingness to share imperfect work, this trust in the process, it allows them to develop their skills faster than people who are trying to make everything perfect. There's this famous story about a ceramics teacher who divided his class into two groups. One group would be graded on the quality of a single perfect pot. At the end of the semester, the highest quality pots all came from the quantity group. Because they'd spent the whole semester making pots, learning from each attempt, getting better through repetition. While the quality group had spent the whole semester theorizing and planning and trying to create one perfect piece. That's the Aries approach to life. They're the quantity group. They're not trying to get it perfect. They're trying to get it done. And through sheer volume of attempts, they end up creating better results than people who are paralyzed by perfectionism. This is why Aries people often seem to have more life experience than their age would suggest. Because they're not sitting on the sidelines analyzing, they're in the game playing. Now let's talk about something that makes Aries truly exceptional, and this is going to challenge some common assumptions about success. Aries doesn't need external validation. They don't need approval. They don't need permission. They don't need consensus. They have this internal compass that guides them, and they trust it completely even when everyone else thinks they're wrong. Most people are so dependent on external validation. They need their parents to approve of their choices. They need their friends to support their decisions. They need society to recognize their worth. They need likes and comments and followers to feel like they matter. And this dependency on external validation, it keeps them trapped. Because they can't move forward until they get the green light from outside themselves. And that green light often never comes. Aries doesn't wait for the green light. They don't need anyone to tell them they're on the right path. They don't need evidence that it's going to work out. They just know. And that knowing, that deep internal certainty, it's not arrogance. It's not delusion. It's connection to their own inner authority. It's trust in their own guidance system. And that self-trust is the foundation of everything else. I've seen this play out in so many ways. Aries people who start businesses that everyone says will fail. Aries people who pursue relationships that everyone says are wrong for them. Aries people who make life choices that seem crazy to outside observers. And sometimes those choices don't work out. Sometimes the business fails. Sometimes the relationship ends. Sometimes the choice leads to difficulty. But even then Aries doesn't regret it. Because they were following their own truth. They were honoring their own knowing. And that integrity, that alignment between their inner guidance and their outer actions, that's worth more than any external success. This is something other signs really struggle with. Especially air signs who need things to make logical sense. Or earth signs who need practical evidence. Or water signs who need emotional confirmation. They can't understand how Aries can be so certain without proof. How they can move forward without validation. How they can trust themselves so completely. But that's the Aries gift. That's what makes them unstoppable. And here's what's really interesting. This independence from external validation, it actually makes Aries more successful in the external world. Because they're not performing for approval. They're not trying to please anyone. They're not shaping themselves to fit expectations. They're just being authentically themselves. And that authenticity, that refusal to perform, that genuine self-expression, it's magnetic. People are drawn to it. Opportunities come to it. Success follows it. I want to talk about one more thing that I think is absolutely central to understanding why everyone wishes they were Aries. Aries has this incredible capacity for joy. Pure, uncomplicated joy. They don't need a reason to be happy. They don't need everything to be perfect. They don't need all their problems solved. They can find joy in the moment, in the challenge, in the process itself. Most people have made happiness conditional. They'll be happy when they get the promotion. When they find the relationship. When they lose the weight. When they make the money. When they achieve the goal. Happiness is always in the future, always dependent on something external, always just out of reach. And this conditional happiness, it means they're never actually happy. Because there's always another condition. Always another thing that needs to happen first. Aries doesn't do that. They're happy now. They're excited about what they're doing right now. They're enjoying the journey, not just waiting for the destination. And this capacity for present moment joy, it makes their life so much richer. It makes every experience more vivid. It makes challenges feel like adventures instead of obstacles. It makes the whole process of being alive feel like something worth celebrating. I know an Aries guy who's training for an ultramarathon. And when he talks about his training runs, he's not complaining about how hard it is, or how much it hurts, or how early he has to wake up. He's genuinely excited. He talks about the sunrise he saw. The way his body felt. The mental breakthrough he had at mile 15. He's finding joy in the difficulty. He's celebrating the challenge. And that attitude, that ability to find pleasure in the process, it's what's going to get him across the finish line. This is what other signs envy most. Not the success. Not the confidence. Not even the courage. But the joy. The ability to be fully alive in each moment. The capacity to find excitement in the ordinary. The gift of being genuinely happy without needing everything to be perfect. That's what everyone wants. That's what most people have lost somewhere along the way. But Aries never lost it. Or they keep finding it again, no matter how many times life tries to take it away. And here's the beautiful thing. This joy, this alevins, this full engagement with life, it's not something Aries has that you don't. It's not some special gift they were born with that you're missing. It's a choice. It's a practice. It's a way of being in the world that anyone can cultivate. Aries just does it naturally. They haven't been conditioned out of it. They haven't learned to suppress it. They haven't been taught that being too happy or too excited or too alive is somehow inappropriate. But you can learn it. You can practice it. You can choose to engage with life the way Aries does. You can choose to act before you feel ready. You can choose to trust yourself without external validation. You can choose to find joy in the present moment instead of waiting for future conditions. You can choose to fail forward instead of staying stuck. You can choose to reinvent yourself instead of staying loyal to an identity that no longer serves you. This is what I want you to understand. When we talk about why everyone wishes they were Aries, we're not talking about some fixed personality trait you either have or you don't. We're talking about a way of being in the world, a relationship with life, an approach to challenges, a willingness to be fully present and fully engaged and fully yourself regardless of what anyone else thinks. And the reason this matters so much right now is because we're entering a period where Aries energy is going to be absolutely essential. With Saturn moving through Aries, with the nodes activating the Aries-Libra axis, with all the collective shifts happening, the universe is demanding that we step into more courage, more authenticity, more willingness to take action even when we're scared, more capacity to start over when things aren't working, more trust in our own inner guidance. The people who already have strong Aries placements, they're going to have an advantage. They're already wired for this energy. But everyone else, we're being asked to develop these qualities. We're being asked to become more Aries. Not to lose our own sign's gifts, but to integrate the Aries capacity for bold action and authentic self-expression and joyful engagement with life. So when you find yourself envying that Aries person in your life, when you watch them take risks you wish you could take, when you see them living with a freedom you wish you had, don't just envy them. Learn from them. Study how they move through the world. Notice how they make decisions. Pay attention to how they handle failure. Observe how they find joy in the process. And then start practicing those qualities yourself. Because here's the truth. The Aries advantage isn't about being born under a certain sign. It's about embodying certain principles. It's about choosing courage over comfort. It's about trusting yourself over seeking validation. It's about taking action over waiting for permission. It's about finding joy in the present instead of postponing happiness. And those are choices. Those are practices. Those are skills you can develop. The Zodiac isn't a prison. It's a map. It shows you your natural strengths and your growth edges. And right now the map is pointing toward Aries. It's saying this is the energy we need. This is the approach that's going to work. This is the way forward. So whether you're an Aries or not, whether you have Aries placements or not, you're being invited to step into this energy, to embody these qualities, to live with more boldness and authenticity and joy. And when you do that, when you start moving through the world with that Aries confidence and courage and commitment to your own truth, something shifts. Opportunities appear. Doors open. People respond differently to you, not because you're performing or pretending, but because you're finally being fully yourself. You're finally trusting your own guidance. You're finally taking action on what you know is true for you. And that alignment between your inner knowing and your outer expression, that's what creates magic. That's what bends reality. That's what makes the impossible possible. So yes, everyone wishes they were Aries. Because Aries represents something we all want. The freedom to be ourselves. The courage to go after what we want. The joy of being fully alive. The trust in our own path. The willingness to start over. The capacity to fail forward. The ability to find excitement in each moment.